If you want more green, you've got to spend the green. That's the gist behind MassDOT's ambitious new transportation plan, which includes a long-awaited expansion of the MBTA's Green Line. It's just one of several priorities laid out in the agency's new 5-year plan. And you'll want to pay attention because before it gets green-lit, it will have to pass muster with you. A greatly expanded Green Line with service to Somerville. A commuter rail-based Indigo Line, regular train service between Boston and New Bedford. Those are some of the service expansions envisioned in MassDOT's plan to spend $12.4 billion on the state's transportation infrastructure. Much of that money would go to fixing our current system, with continued funding to replace dilapidated bridges, improvements to the Mass Pike, and new rail cars for the red and orange lines. MassDOT Secretary Richard Davies says the plan was shaped by the needs of residents.
I think today we have a pretty good sense of what people want because we've spent so much time over the last couple of years listening.
T-riders like Laura West say investments in new trains can be the difference between driving and taking public transportation.
So I'm trying to figure out which is easier, which is better. I might do a mix of both, but if it's cleaner and nicer, obviously that'll be a plus side to do the transportation.
But making the plan a reality hinges on two things: state lawmakers passing a $12 billion bond bill and the outcome of a November ballot question seeking to repeal recent increases to the state's gas tax.
If that ballot question passes, it would significantly undercut our ability to fund a lot of these projects.
For now, MassDOT is taking its plan on the road, hosting 6 meetings across the state to do more listening to the public. So is MassDOT's vision for the future of our rail and roadways realistic? It all depends on who you ask. Christina Egan is the director of the advocacy group Massachusetts Transportation, a coalition of organizations working to ensure safe and convenient and affordable transportation choices. Welcome. You're a fan of this. It's a huge project, and it's not getting a lot of attention right now, but is it going to work?
Well, I think that it's a really good first step, building a foundation for a good transportation network in Massachusetts. For too long, we haven't had enough funding to keep up with what we have. This plan invests about 80% of our money into keeping our roads workable, our transit system running, and then another 20%, some strategic expansions to really build our economy in Massachusetts.
All right, let's bring in another voice on this, a little bit more skeptical. Charlie Cipio is a research fellow at the Harvard Kennedy School's Ash Center and a senior fellow at the Pioneer Institute. Welcome to Greater Boston.
Thank you.
Charlie, you've been studying transportation issues for decades.
Since I was young.
Since you were, yeah, I know. Why are you skeptical of this? It's a bond-funded project.
Well, I mean, there's good things in it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think it's good that for the first time we're looking at all the different modes of transportation together because it's one system and we have to treat it as one system. You know, the problems I have with it are the problems I've always had with the way we do transportation. Christina's right. We don't have enough money, but the problem is that for years we haven't had enough money, but we spent like we did. And so the result is that we are in this massive hole in transportation. And the reality is that you know, these actions have consequences, and I think that every penny just needs to go into maintenance. I agree with what the woman said. Now, in the previous part there, the intro, that you know, that's where it comes down to: am I going to take transit or am I going to take my car? These things have to work.
But the report itself cites something fascinating, which, what you really think about it, it's got to be true, and that is that towns and cities and towns that need revitalization, the best thing that ever happened to them is that they got some kind of a transportation system that was cited right there in the report. You know,
absolutely.
If you build Holmes Valley was near MBTA, it's more than doubled. Look at that right there. And so they're saying if you build like in Lawrence or New Bedford, that you're going to build the economy at the same time.
Well, first of all, let's look at Lawrence, or let's look at New Bedford and Fall River. I'm sorry to say, Christina, the one that makes me the craziest. But I mean, look,
the one that excites me crazy.
New Bedford
and Fall River are following the same idea that Providence did 20 years ago. That essentially we're going to be a bedroom community for Boston. 20 years ago, when Providence started this, it had an unemployment rate that looked pretty much like Boston's. Now it has an unemployment rate that looks like New Bedford's and Fall River's. We need to invest in these cities and make these cities themselves the centers for their region. Making them bedroom communities for Boston is not going to be the answer.
Well, New Bedford would argue they already are their own community, but it's a matter of getting in and out of the city as well. So what excites you about it?
Well, I would say that right now the economies are really restricted in places like Fall River, New Bedford, and actually gateway cities across Massachusetts because there just isn't a pipeline that connects employers and employees very well. Now, I traveled Route 24 when I worked for the state on this project, and it's unreliable.
Yeah,
and it's terrible. You don't know if you're going to arrive in Boston or New Bedford in 2 hours or half an hour. And so in order to really create a reliable economic connection, we need to have rail, not just roads, connect the economies all across the state.
And I agree with that, but here's the other side of that. The MBTA, for the last 25 years, has expanded faster than any other transit system in the country, even though we're one of the slowest growing metropolitan areas. Yet, we have less job growth. We have the same amount of jobs that we had in 1990, okay? And nationwide, it's gone up 25%. So if just expanding at the cost of not taking care of what you have is going to do all that, then...
Depends on where you expand. So I got to ask, I know you're not a big fan of taxes either, Charlie, but what's going to happen with, I'll start with you, Christine, this rollback question on the ballot. They want to take away the increases in the gas tax, and they're saying, hey, if we do that, this project is in jeopardy.
Well, the legislature showed some incredible leadership this last year, and we have about $600 million more every year that's going to be coming into transportation. And the rollback is going to start to erode at that progress. So in 2014, there's a ballot question that says, let's get rid of pegging the gas tax to inflation, which is part of the reason why we're in the hole that we're in right now. The gas tax has stayed static since 1993, and that means that as costs go up, the revenues are going down, and you get a bigger and bigger hole. So it would be a real mistake for transportation to repeal it.
And I'm going to surprise you on that one because I completely agree with that.
Oh my gosh!
I think that the legislature came up with just about the right number. And I would say, in fact, that one of the things in here is to do electronic tolling on the Mass Pike. Hey, I think we ought to be doing electronic tolling on every highway. You know, and that's where we're going to get the money to be able to do the system.
And I agree with Charlie on that.
All right, Christine.
Happy ending.
Charlie Chipio, thanks.